Hello Evo Webbers, PES lovers, skeptics, haters, and even the odd FIFA player too. Yes, I know you're watching, but it's okay, I'm not going to tell anyone. Welcome to the official EvoWeb PES 2018 review, and this year it's in video form. Oh, fancy, eh? But there is a reason for it, and that reason is fake news. You can't just say things anymore, you have to prove yourself, even if we're talking about an opinion. And even when you do prove yourself, there's somebody somewhere who has a theory about your so-called opinion. You're being paid by Konami, and you're being paid by EA. You're a womble, you're not even real, nothing is real, where are my pills, I know you're taking my money, etc, etc, etc. So I thought that this year the best thing that I could do is to show you the game and try and back everything up as much as I can. Now before we get to the kick-off, oh that's a terrible joke, sorry, I need to thank Adam and Asim for the support that they've given to the community over the years. Now, I know that they both get a lot of stick over the game, and they're even accused of dishonesty. And, I mean, firstly, and I think this is an important point, we're talking about a game here. But also, I've known Adam for many years, since he was a member of EvoWeb many moons ago now, and he's never ceased to be a genuinely decent guy. He is Mr. Pro Evo as far as I'm concerned. He works his heart out for the game, and so does Asim, but they aren't developers and they don't make any development decisions. And I just want to thank them both before I carry on with this review for supporting the site with each release of the game that we all love, or in the case of the FIFA fans, secretly love. But it's okay. Right, let's get stuck into it then, and let's start with what for most of us is the most important part of Pro Evo, and that is the gameplay. So, question, how do you play Pro Evo? You might play it against friends, you might love playing it online, you might love playing it against the AI, and that's the category that I fall into. Now, I'm part of a generation of gamers that's dying out. I'm less interested in proving my skills online, that's skills with a Z if you couldn't tell, and much more interested in playing against an AI that recreates the style of play of my opponents. If you're an offline kind of guy, it's pretty much unanimously agreed that the AI in Pro Evo does a much better job of recreating a team's real life play style and provides a lot more variety than FIFA does. Oh, I'll try not to make too many comparisons to FIFA, I promise. So Pro Evo arrives on my doorstep and I'm giddy with excitement. The first thing I do is fire up the Master League just to see how the AI has advanced this year. But this is what I saw. See if you can spot a pattern.
Out to the left it goes. Schneiderlin. Barkley with a long pass out wide. Now the pass. Oh, good interception. Forward it goes. Steered out wide. Lukaku goes up and over. Long and high towards the flank.
Okay, I'm just going to butt in now. The AI in 2018 absolutely loves a through ball, especially lofted through balls. So much so that I can continue talking while all these clips run in the background. Just look at them all. In fact, what you're seeing at the moment, well, until just then actually, was from the first half of one match. This is now the first half of the next game, but there are 5 first halves that I've recorded in total, and 1 full match across top player, superstar and the new legend difficulty, and more about that later on. But it's just non-stop. You could argue that the back 4 could be deeper, or that the wing backs are poor positionally, or that you're only seeing me play as one team here, but honestly, I promise you, whichever team I played as, and more worryingly, no matter who I played against, and however I set up my defence, the AI always looked to hit through balls down the wing as a priority. And this is the first time I can recall playing against the AI in a PES game in recent memory where I've thought to myself, oh, these matches all feel a bit familiar, a bit samey. The variety just wasn't there, and I felt no difference in the AI's approach between English League matches and Europa League football. Between different teams, it just felt like the AI was repeating the same patterns. Speaking of playing in the Europa League, actually, Why are Liverpool assigned to the Europa League? This is with the day one patch applied, and they're not assigned to the Champions League. It's a minor complaint, but those of us who love playing the Master League, we know that it's never exactly been full of things to do off the pitch, and so it's a mode that really lives and dies by the gameplay and by the AI recreating each team's real play style. But this gameplay issue is compounded by another, and that's just how easy it is to run around the pitch without being pressured.
Keeper's ball. Klein. It's a promising run he's making on the right. Klein. Klein plays it in. Lallana goes looking. Mane. That is a terrific run. Oh, great run, magical! Mane, that is terrific skill. Chance!
Again, I feel like I have to reiterate, but this happens on top player, it happens on superstar, it may happen on legend as well. I'll go into legend in a little bit more detail later on. It's a difficulty mode that is more for hardcore gamers who want an impossible challenge as opposed to something that a football fan would want to play, because it doesn't represent real football. But it's just crazy that on top player and superstar you've got this amount of space, and again you might say, well, this is one example and you're using a very fast player there and you're only playing against one team. But I've tried this with multiple teams, multiple players, not just the fastest players. In fact, the clip before this is, I think it's Nathaniel Klein, and admittedly he's not, a snail's pace player, but you can do it with anyone. If you reduce the speed to -1, you can reduce this imbalance a little bit, and suddenly you're a little bit more likely to be caught on the wings, but it doesn't fix everything, and it's not a complete fix for anything. There are so many bizarre little circumstances as well that didn't happen before. AI defenders will now pass the ball around in their own box rather than clear the danger. I'm assuming it's because they know they'll get away with it because they're passing so good. And goalkeepers occasionally do really strange things like this one, but I should stress before you watch it that the goalkeepers are brilliant in general. It's an occasional occurrence that you see something a bit strange like this.
Mondonda sends that a long way. He's got away. Remy with a long pass out wide. It's Oxlade-Chamberlain! He's missed, but not by that far.
Well, that's confidence for you. Distance doesn't even bother him.
Again, I should stress that goalkeepers seem to be very good in general. It's just that they'll make the odd mistake that will cost you a game. They love to palm balls out to lone strikers, and those strange kind of slow motion dives are still in there, but in general they are very good. I wanted to talk about legend difficulty before we move on to anything else, because I know a lot of people have been getting very excited about this and looking forward to unlocking it to play their Master League games in and things like that. You play Superstar. If you can win 5 matches on the Superstar difficulty level, then you unlock Legend, but it's a difficulty for people who want an impossible challenge opposed to anything that represents real football. I've seen the AI string 40, 50 perfect passes together while I've had to sit and watch. It's not a setting that I can imagine many people playing on once they've tried it a few times, so if you're looking forward to unlocking that and playing your Master League on it, if you're a football fan, I really can't see you using it. It's more for the hardcore gamer who wants to say that they've accomplished an impossible task and they've beat the game on the very, very hardest setting, even though it just loses all semblance of football. But all of this critique is on top of the stuff from the demo that critics of the demo have been talking about on EvoWeb for a while now. Passing on the lowest assist level, being far too assisted, there's no point in the higher assist levels. Shooting not having much variety to it, total lack of fouls, and even the default game speed being too fast. And it's so strange that after the open beta was lauded for daring to be slow, the speed seems to have been increased a little bit. With all this in mind, I'm being a bit disappointed to see how perfect the AI's passing was, again in the demo and in the final game. I decided to run an experiment. I wondered what would happen if I lowered every player on a single team's passing attributes to the lowest possible level, and then play against that team on top player and superstar. I would play against them on professional, but the challenge that you get from the AI on professional, it's if you're a PES player who's been playing for a few years, it's not a difficulty level that's going to challenge you. But I thought if I take a team and change all of their passing, short passing stats, reduce them to the minimum possible level, surely the amount of completed passes would drop considerably, and maybe there'll be a little bit less of this kind of first time, no look passing that I see a lot of from the AI. Well, here's the thing. It didn't change anything. I'll upload the full video capture at some point from editing the stats to playing the game, so that anybody who thinks that I'm just mixing clips together here can take a look for themselves. I mean, I'd probably be accused of doing that anyway, but you can try this yourself, and if you can't be bothered, here's some clips of what it looks like when you do that. Man City have had all of their attributes, their passing attributes, lowered to 40, which is the lowest that you can put them.
Well, thanks, Peter. There's a great sense of anticipation in this stadium, and I've been hit by it too.
Action has already started. Jim, who do you reckon is pivotal?
It has to be Sergio Aguero, the pocket dynamo, a brilliant little player whose squat build gives him that sharper edge.
Yes, he's certainly the one who carries the hopes of his team. Fernandinho, and it's Kolarov. Deftly done. Cut out in the nick of time. Klein plays it in. Zabaleta. Fernandinho. Aguero. De Bruyne.
When this happens, it begs the question, just what do attributes like this actually matter? How are they used in the engine? Shooting attributes feel similarly devoid of importance, with every player seemingly capable of hitting absolute cannonballs, but I do have to say, I think that basic shooting, which is the default level of assistance for shooting in the game, does have more variety than it did before. I feel like I see a lot more dipping shots and just a little bit more variety in the output of your basic shot button press. Another positive has to be that the dribbling feels great now. My enjoyment of being on the ball in PES has increased significantly with this release, with dribbling feeling natural and easy to control. It pairs beautifully with the new auto shielding system that some voiced concern about when it was first announced, but I feel like the balance here has been beautifully met. The new dribbling and the auto shielding work together in absolutely glorious harmony. But what has to be the community's biggest and most common complaint is the lack of fouls in the game. Across my last 10 games, I've experienced 3 fouls from the AI, and 2 of them were in the same game, with the AI seemingly always keen to back off and avoid making a tackle unless it's an almost guaranteed steal. It's no wonder that fouls don't exist. Play is back and forth, end to end, it's counter-attack after counter-attack, with space all over the park. When there's so much space in midfield, no battles need to take place, and no fouls will happen. But PES isn't really about creating gritty midfield battles anymore. Nowadays, it's much more about creating a beautifully flowing game of football that makes your heart beat faster every match that you play. And in that sense, it delivers. The game flows seamlessly from defence to attack and back again. And if that's what you love about PES, you won't be disappointed in this game by any means. It's worth saying that, firstly, Adam has stated on Twitter regarding fouls that the game's next scheduled patch may include some tweaks that encourage a few more, but nothing is set in stone at this time. Secondly, although I tried plenty of tactical fiddling to fix the complaints that I'm making throughout this video, there may well be option files released that change each team's tactics and advanced instruction settings, that change the gameplay to create more midfield scraps and reduce the amount of through balls that the AI hits. But relying on the community for this makes me feel a little uncomfortable. It's easy to forget that the majority of people who buy the game have no knowledge of option files, control methods, or even difficulty levels, and it does take a little know-how as well as a computer and a USB stick to install an option file in the first place. But of course, I've got no doubt whatsoever that they'll increase my enjoyment of the Master League tenfold once they're released over the coming months. Speaking of which, let's move on to the Master League. The Master League itself has seen a few tweaks this year, and no, it's not an entirely revamped game mode, but we've come to expect that. And actually, I was quite charmed by it at first. The new challenge mode means that you have a chairman to please, and some of the messages I received during the Master League were pretty entertaining. Derby games have a bigger impact on your approval rating than normal league games, for example, and it's little touches like that that make it seem just a little bit more polished. My favourite tweak is the addition of variable transfer fee negotiations. So what I mean by that is, instead of hitting a negotiate button when you're trying to get a little bit more for a player, just hoping that it goes your way and that they don't decide to walk away from the deal, now there's a scale that you can adjust for the transfer fee, the yearly wage, and even release clauses if you decide to add them on. However, my joy at this little addition was short-lived after I realised that I could buy players easily for £10 million less than their market valuation, and it just makes no sense. Release clauses also generally don't make sense either. In nearly all of my transfer negotiations they were included, and the player insists that the release clause was lower than the bid I was making to buy him. So I can buy a £25 million rated player for £15 million with a release clause of £12 million that he's insisting upon. If that was real life, he'd be off to Paris Saint-Germain the second that he scored his first goal. Also, the same ridiculous transfer deadline day restrictions from 2017 are present, so when it's transfer deadline day you're allotted 15 hours to complete your final deals, but every single action that you take takes 2 to 3 hours to complete, even though all you want to do is say yes to a club and sell a player so that you can buy someone else where it's been lined up for a while now. And in real life we're talking about a 5-minute phone call to say yes, I want to sell that player, but for some reason in the game it takes 2-3 hours and you can't do anything else during that time. On top of that, retired players still appear in your youth squad, with the game telling you that they're 15 now, even though they have the face of a 40-year-old, and with a skill level that absolutely dwarfs everybody else's in your youth squad. However, we're kind of used to this kind of thing now, and the transfer system in last year's PES was equally bad, with AI teams refusing to pay much more than a player's market value for your players, but then asking for twice of it for their players. So it's sort of a step in the right direction, but for how many years are these small steps going to be acceptable? And that's something that only you can answer, because it's entirely subjective. For me, these steps are just too small, and we're waiting too long between versions to get some of these changes, but it's all going in the right direction, so it is entirely subjective. I did see AI teams making lots of generally realistic looking transfers early on, with Oxlade-Chamberlain joining West Brom, and okay, maybe that's not realistic, maybe you think he would only be looking to join bigger teams, but it's still nice to see the AI making transfers like that early on. I'm also told that in the challenge mode, players can become unhappy and ask to leave, and that's probably the biggest and most important addition to the Master League since the introduction of this team spirit rating not so long ago now. There are also things like cutscenes that appear before certain events, such as important matches and big player signings, but they're quick, seconds-long affairs that are almost blink and you'll miss it type stuff. And all of these little flourishes feel like a collection of, look, okay, we know you still play this thing and we had to give you something moments. Snippets of new code here and cutscenes there. And as I said before, the Master League has always depended on the gameplay to survive, and that's still the case, but with a year's worth of work it could be turned into something really special. As it stands, it's just slightly better than it was last year, and okay, to be honest, if you love the gameplay, that's probably going to be enough to keep you going until next year if you're a Master League aficionado, even though you're almost going to be doing it begrudgingly, and you're going to be doing it in the same handful of stadiums, game in, game out. But at least we can change the day-night setting now before a game. Moving away from the AI experience, playing against friends is as wonderful as it's ever been, with human-controlled teams proving a lot more fun to play against. Online play should be a barrel of laughs too, particularly with the new online co-op modes that have been added. But as I record this, the servers still haven't been switched on, so it remains to be seen if they'll stand up to the punishment that they're going to receive over the coming months. Random selection matches with friends are a thing of beauty too, with its weird and wonderful mashups of your favourite teams. And as always, PES with friends is an instant reminder of why we fell in love with the game in the first place. And there you have it really, actually that's PES in a nutshell. It reminds you of its soul in one moment, just as it reminds you that it's starting to get a little old and a little too determined not to join us all in the 21st century in the next. It's difficult to put a score at the end of this review really, because I loved PES 2017 and I gave it an 8 out of 10 this time last year, but I ended that review by saying, with the gameplay and the AI having hit new heights, I'd love Konami to spend the next year or so beefing up the game off the pitch. And what's happened is, the graphics have got better. Oh, I should have said earlier actually, the graphics are absolutely incredible now. Although, it's got to be said that the photorealistic faces look really jarring next to the generic ones. It's almost like watching a football match where a few of the players are wearing bins on their head with their faces drawn on. While we're talking about presentation actually, something strange has happened with commentary where previously commentators would say a player's name and leave a pause either side of it, giving the impression that they're less commentators and more of an answering machine. You have 3 messages. That's an excellent pass by Lallana. Now they've seemingly recorded player names now, but this time they're cut off before they're completely said, before the word's completely been finished. It still has the pauses either side of it though, so if anything it sounds even more bizarre now, and you get lines like this award winner.
Lukaku did well to pick out Lukaku, for whom the ball just didn't fall kindly.
What I particularly love about that clip is his tone of voice when he says Lukaku. It just sounds, the tone is really weird to me, but anyway, sorry, where were we? Yep, graphics are definitely improved, and the gameplay has improved as well when you've got the ball at your feet. It's just that when you haven't, I'm not entirely sure that the balance is right, and I almost feel like the AI just can't cope with the new freedom that's to be had when you've got the ball at your feet. And meanwhile, my interaction with players in the Master League is still pretty much just swapping them around on the team sheet once a month whenever they're so tired that that needs to happen. And it's a rare occurrence, so it's another point in Master League where you haven't really got much to do. And with the leaps and bounds that gaming has made recently, now that we're in the era of PS4 Pros and Xbox One X's, I really hoped that football games, and particularly PES, would take advantage of some of this power and start to achieve new things. AI with more individual player thought and more realistic recreations of their abilities, but as I said earlier, if we can reduce a player's passing attributes to the lowest possible and it doesn't really make much difference in the game, it just makes you wonder how the engine is interpreting each player's individuality, which is something that PES has been lauded for so long. And you couldn't say that PES 2018 is a bad game, don't get me wrong, because it's not. It's just carving out its own modern niche for itself, and it's a lot of fun in the right circumstances, and I'm really looking forward to trying it online, because the beta online was, I honestly think that's the best online football experience I've had for a long time now. I just have to admit to myself that personally I really hope that PES 2019, and it sounds really weird saying 2019 out loud, I hope that addresses more of the community's feedback than 2018 appears to have done. This has been Chris Davis, and you've been a very patient listener. Thank you for staying on board and listening to all of this, if you managed it. And on behalf of all of us at EvoWeb, thank you very much for listening. We all hope that you love the game, and Merry PESmas.